Have you ever fallen out with someone and known deep down that you must forgive them and restore that relationship, that friendship? If you're a Christian, have you found it hard to move forward with God until you have made peace with those you've fallen out with? In the letter to the Romans in the New Testament, we read that everything that was written in the past, that's in the Old Testament, everything that was written in the past was written to teach us. And there's plenty for us to learn from this chapter in the Bible. And we can call this first part getting ready for reconciliation. Getting ready for reconciliation. I've got an interesting quote from a preacher, Henry Ward Beecher, and he said, "Every man should have a fair-sized cemetery in which to bury the faults of his friends." It's an interesting idea. Every man should have a fair-sized cemetery in which to bury the faults of his friends. Yeah. Well, let's look at Genesis 32 in greater detail. Verse 1 says, Jacob also went on his way, also because Laban, his uncle Laban, went on his way, and that was the last he saw of him. But Jacob also went on his way, and the angels of God met him. Wow. When Jacob saw them and said, "This is the camp of God." And so he named that place Mahanaim. 2 camps. One for himself, one for the angels. I think of that verse in James where it says, "Come near to God and he will come near to you." He puts that faith in your heart to start off with. And then you step out towards him. And then you, because you're reciprocating that move of God, he then comes near to you. And we can see the work of God within Jacob. And as if he's moving forward with God at this point in his life. It's really good. But he's got to take action as well. It's not all of God, as it were. We have to step out towards him. And Jacob has this great delight, doesn't he, at the angels' presence with him, their ability to protect him at this time in his life where he's pretty nervous, to protect and to give him peace, encouraging him. Actually, this is the Lord fulfilling his promise. Remember in the chapter before, if you were with us last week, the Lord said, "I will be with you. I will be with you." The word of the Lord had to happen. And here it is. So we go on. This is verse 3. Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. And he instructed them, "This is what you are to say to my master Esau. Your servant Jacob says, I've been staying with Laban and have remained there till now. I have cattle and donkeys and sheep and goats and men servants and maidservants. Now I'm sending this message to my Lord that I may find favour in your eyes." And there's Jacob's intention to make peace. And this is all part of God's working in Jacob's life. The Lord needs to work through many aspects in Jacob's life. Thinking about ourselves today, oftentimes the Lord will stop us and he will pause certain things in our lives until he's helped us learn something new, that he's showed us where we need to grow and mature, including having us make peace with people where there's a situation that needs sorting out. God cares who we are as people, not simply what we do. Who we are as people, not simply what we do. I mean, he can work in our consciences and give us the desire to reconcile with people we've fallen out with, perhaps many, many years ago. After all, forgiveness and reconciliation, that is dealing with things properly that we've done wrong and relationships that we spoiled, it's really at the very heart of the Bible's message. And every one of us needs to hear its message, because every one of us has ruined our relationship with God. But when we own up to our wrongdoing, when we ask for his rescue, and we're given Jesus' righteousness. Jesus paid for our sin through his death on the cross. And yet only when we take hold of his gift of righteousness can it be ours. And then we're able to enjoy true fellowship with God, with every sin in our lives dealt with and paid for. And so, Jacob's recommitment to God, walking with him and living for his purposes, awaken in Jacob a desire to go to his brother Esau, who he tricked and treated poorly decades before, and ask for his forgiveness. Have a fresh start in their relationship as twin brothers. And Jacob sends messengers ahead. Why would he do that? Well, because Jacob has flocks and herds in his own family to lead and protect and care for. There was no faster method of communication back then than sending messengers ahead. There were no text messages then, no instant way of doing it. This sending messengers was actually the equivalent of sending a text, really, in today's world. And you can see there, he says there, I have cattle, verse 5, and donkeys, sheep and goats, men servants and maidservants. And he's saying that not to boast. He's planning on his servants saying that, not say, look what I've got, look at me. It's the very reverse. He's actually saying he's being blessed by God. And he's not coming to Esau for a handout. He's saying, look, I've got plenty already. I'm secure. I don't need help in that way. He simply wants Esau himself. He wants forgiveness and peace between them. But then, oh no, verse 6, look at this. When the messengers returned to Jacob, they said, we went to your brother Esau, and now he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him. Oh, it sounds like war, doesn't it? Sounds like 400 men. It sounds really scary. You know, it doesn't sound businesslike, it sounds like battle, doesn't it? Verse 7 and 8. This is a natural reaction. In great fear and distress, Jacob divided the people who were with him into two groups, and the flocks and herds and camels as well. And he thought, if Esau comes and attacks one group, the group that is left may escape. It's a natural reaction. Protect what you have. But Jacob is still compelled to continue on his quest for reconciliation with his brother Esau. He doesn't turn and run. He still thinks this is still the way ahead. I need to reconcile with Esau. I need my differences settled with him and in the right way. And you know what? He does the right thing. He does the right thing. He doesn't just put it all down to himself. Verse 9. Jacob prayed. O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, go back to your country and your relatives, and I will make you prosper. I'm unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you've shown to your servant. Jacob does the right thing. He prays. You know, good times or bad, we must always pray. If we only pray when things appear to have gone wrong, that really shows how immature that we are. Let's have a moment, take a moment to see how Jacob prays. Now, first of all, he prays with great reverence towards God. This is a great model prayer, even for us today. He prays with reverence towards God. We think about the Lord's Prayer and the pattern for prayer that Jesus set when the disciples came to him to show us how to pray. And what does it start off with? Remember what those first two words are? Of the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. It's coming in great reverence and respect, and obviously this is way before, many years before Jesus came and showed his disciples how to pray. But here we have him praying, showing great respect towards God. He sees God's working through his own father, Isaac, and his grandfather, Abraham. So when he uses the word father there, Father Abraham and Father Isaac, it really means ancestor. Sometimes the Bible does use it like that. And that might help to clear up sometimes some confusion as you read the Bible for yourself in your own time. Sometimes father simply means ancestor. So it could be a grandfather, a great-grandfather. O Lord, who said to me, go back to your country and your relatives, and I'll make you prosper. So he's using references as well to what God has already told him. We can pray like that in our prayers today as well. Make reference to what God has already told us in his word. And as we've already said, he prays with humility and thankfulness. These are essential things for every Christian. Humility and thankfulness. I'm unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you've shown your servant. I only had my staff when I crossed this Jordan. He went walking out. He literally left home with just the staff in his hand. Just had an able body, a willing heart to work, and nothing more. But now, he says, now I've become two groups. He's become such a huge, huge party that he can split into two groups on this particular occasion. And so he then comes, this is another thing that we need to do in our own prayers. He comes with a direct and a specific request. He says, verse 11, save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, because it looks like war. It looks like trouble, doesn't it? So he says, save me, for I'm afraid you will come and attack me, and also the mothers of their children. So he comes with that specific request, and yet he ends remembering God's promise. This is essential as well. Oftentimes we have these prayers in the Bible, these great men of God, and they're saying, but God, you said this, and I'm going to hang on to that promise. I want you to remember that promise. I'm aware of it, and I'm going to tell you that I'm aware of it. And so he says in verse 12, but you have said, I will surely make you prosper and make your descendants like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted. And if God's promise is to be fulfilled, Jacob must be kept safe. Stands to reason, doesn't it? And what happens? Well, God doesn't take Jacob out of the difficult situation. He doesn't airlift him to safety, so to speak, but rather God uses the situation to teach Jacob, to have him grow in faith and maturity. To bring us up to date, we can often take years to learn this in our own lives. Well, next, Jacob is there. He's there. He says he spent the night there in verse 13. He spent the night there from what he had with him, and he selected a gift for his brother Esau. He selected a gift. Now, these days we have gift shops, don't we? And, something like sparkly, something for the mantelpiece, maybe. Well, this isn't sparkly and for the mantelpiece, is it? He selects, count them out if you want to, 580 animals. Wow, that's a big gift, isn't it? 580 animals, and they're good people, they're good animals. They're not his rubbish. He selected them particularly. And they are not just a load of sheep, they're everything from goats, rams, cows, and even camels. And he selects 580 animals. 580. So think how many he started with. Wow, he must have an enormous number. So he instructs the one in the lead, and he goes on, says, this is what you're to do. No detail escapes him. Everything is prepared as far as he's concerned. And so in verse 21, it says, Jacob's gifts went on ahead of him, but he himself spent the night in the camp. And that night, Jacob got up, took his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. And after he'd sent them across the stream, he sent over all his possessions. So he stays alone. He stays alone. Ooh, what happens now? Oh, maybe he's just there to sleep on his own, to rest, to think, to pray. No, not really. He's still got more to do. He's got more to do because although Jacob has prepared well for this reconciliation, the Lord must prepare Jacob in one more way before that reconciliation takes place. And I'll be honest with you, this is one of the most unusual things in the whole of the Bible. Verse 24. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. He's met by this mysterious man. Who can it be? Who can it be? Well, this man, we believe, is the Son of God. Now, those of you who've been travelling with us, as it were, through Genesis, know that God appears in a fleshly form in many different times. It's what we call a theophany, and that's from the Greek, meaning God, theos, theo, and to show or to appear, to essentially show God to mankind. So a theophany, not to the whole of mankind, normally just 1 or 2 people. The first time it happens is where Adam and Eve are there, in the Garden of Eden. And the Lord God is walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And that's the Son of God appearing to them. But here, it seems that the Son of God is wrestling with Jacob. And he wrestled with him till daybreak, all night. Why does Jacob wrestle for so long? Why is he so tenacious? He just won't let go. And I believe it's because Jacob so desperately wants those covenant promises of God. He's been brought up with it. He was being told about it by his mother. All the way through his life. He's now 97 years old. And yet, he's still, in fact, more desperate for those promises to be worked out through him than ever before. So he's always wanted those promises to come true. Those covenant promises of God. Man wrestled with him till daybreak. And verse 25. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. And this is a curious thing. You're thinking, hang on, you're telling me that he's wrestling with God, and yet Jacob is not losing. And the man saw that he could not overpower him. This is curious, isn't it? And yet he does have the ability to disable Jacob, and permanently. I'm guessing, I've never read anything to this effect, but I'm reckoning that what it is, when Jesus was here walking on earth, he had a certain amount of strength in his body, didn't he? He had a particular amount of strength in his body. It's not that he was Samson, like a huge muscular guy who, when the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, he could push down a pillar, and so therefore the whole temple fell down, or anything like that, as happened with Samson. He didn't come as this kind of almost incredible Hulk-like strength man. And so, yes, he did meet the limit of his earthly strength in that theophany, on that night. And that was all deliberate. But what he could do, of course, was exercise his divine power, his godly power, in such a way that nobody else could. He touched the socket of Jacob's hip. So his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. And so we believe he came to injure Jacob permanently. So he had that limp for the rest of his life, the next 40 years. He died 137. 40-year limp. Wow. What do we say about this today? For us today, once we've yielded to him, the Lord can use our character traits, our tenacity, as we look at Jacob, our drive, the things that when we have them are really mishandled and misapplied, but in the Lord's purposes, they can be used well for his glory. The man, verse 26, said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Let me go, for it is daybreak. Is the Lord testing his faith here? I'm reminded of something that happens to Jesus. It's in Mark chapter 7, if you want to look at it in your Bibles later. Mark chapter 7. And Jesus is approached by this Syrophoenician woman from outside of the area of his main mission. And she is tenacious too. She won't let go. She has faith in Jesus. And it's as if Jesus is pushing her away. It seems quite rude almost. And yet, I believe, and Christians should believe, that Jesus is, of course, is not being rude, because that would be sin in itself. He is drawing out her faith. And ultimately, she gets exactly what she wants, what she asks for. And she is satisfied. And I think it's the same situation here, that the Lord knows exactly how much Jacob, or perhaps you, are stretching and straining forward because you really want his blessing on your life in that particular way. And this is his way of drawing out that faith and not taking no for an answer or let it wait. But anyway, he says this. In verse 27, the man asked, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. "Jacob." "Jacob." And then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob." Remember, Jacob means he grasps the heel. But Israel, because you struggled with God and with men and have overcome. A new name. This is nothing new, of course, within the Bible, because his grandfather had a new name. He went from Abraham to Abraham, from being exalted father to being father of many. He's renamed. In the New Testament, we have two particular people who are renamed. We have Simon, the apostle, who's renamed Peter, the rock. We have the apostle Paul, who originally is Saul, and is renamed Paul because he goes from Saul, which means great, to Paul, meaning little. Same is true here. God takes what is perhaps a person who's full of themselves and humbles them. And it's only in that way that they're used properly by God. A new name, describing a new purpose and a new focus. So I just want to go over this point again. In verse 28, he says, "Then the man said, 'Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have overcome.'" Overcome God? How is that possible? Well, Jacob was essentially struggling in prayer. Jacob wanted those covenant promises, as we just said, more than anything else in the world. He wanted those things to come true, that God and his glory and his name would be coming through his family. And this is the kind of faith that Jesus was speaking of in Luke 18. I want you to turn with me, if you can keep a hand, in Genesis 32. This is a main cross-reference of the day. Luke chapter 18. Right at the beginning there in verse 1, this is page 1052 if you're using a church Bible. 1052, 1052. Luke chapter 18 and verse 1. "Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. And he said, 'In a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared about men. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with the plea, "Grant me justice against my adversary." And for some time he refused. But finally he said to himself, "Even though I don't fear God or care about men, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice, so that she won't eventually wear me out with her coming." And the Lord said, "Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones, who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will see that they get justice, and quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth?" When the Lord sees our persistence, our longing in prayer, he will not deny us those answers to his own promises. That's how we overcome God, as it were. And yet, Jesus ends that section in Luke 18, that verse 8, that last verse. "However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth?" That's a searching question, isn't it? Will he find faith on the earth? I know there are precious few people in this room here this morning. And, sometimes we can feel like the faithful few. And that is a searching question from Jesus' lips. Are we going to be the ones like Jacob to say, "Please, Lord, may I be the one through whom your promises are fulfilled," to hang on in faith to all that he has promised? Well, in verse 29 of Genesis 32, page 36 of the Church Bible, back in Genesis 32, and no more page turning this morning. Page 36 of the Church Bibles, verse 29. Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" And then he blessed him there. It's almost as if to say, "You know who I am." It was not until Moses' day, when at the burning bush, that the Lord would reveal his name. "I am who I am." And so, verse 30, "So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, 'It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared.'" Peniel meaning face of God. And Jacob realizes that night was not about feeling elated because he received from God what he wanted, but actually that he was close to God, and God, in his mercy, spared his life. He was that close to God. As I said to you earlier, this is perhaps one of the most unusual appearances of God in all history. He appears as a man, and it's not like Jesus going and healing and touching and speaking to the storm, and actually wrestling with this man, the patriarch Jacob. An incredible happening. And yet it was to teach him a lesson that he would take with him for all his life. And this is a deep and a spiritual experience, surely, for Jacob. And you might look and say, well, yes, that's all very well. But what about me today? What have I got to learn from it? Well, I believe that it's the same for everyone who truly encounters the living God at any time, even today. That we will not so much feel elated because we've met with God, amazing as that is, but be humbled in his presence and being aware of his greatness, of his awesome greatness. That we've been in God's presence and we haven't been burned up with holy fire, but rather we are still alive and we are still loved, accepted because of the blood of Jesus covering our every sin. Well, it had been a costly night for Jacob. A costly night. Verse 31 says, the sun rose above him as he passed Peniel. It's a new day, a new start. But he was limping. He was limping because of his hip. It had been a costly night, and yet infinitely worth it. Because Jacob was deeply thankful for that limp that he now had. And you might ask, how can a disability or a weakness be a blessing? And the answer comes when it teaches us to be humble, when it teaches us that we're not in charge, but God is. To let him be the preeminent one, the main one, the Lord, truly our Lord. Jacob, he'd be reminded of the true place of God, of his greatness, literally every time he walked. What had to give, what had to break was his own pride. Perhaps this church is kept small. Perhaps the Lord keeps this church small because he knows it would make me proud to see it grow in number. That at the moment, I have more to learn before we have more people join us worshipping here. Certainly the Apostle Paul knew all about suffering and learning through limping. We're not quite sure what his ailment was, but we read this in his second letter to the church in Corinth. To keep me from becoming conceited because of my surpassing great revelations, it was given to me a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan, to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. And that is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. When he is weak, he can be a channel of God's power. And this is what all the great people of God have learned through the years. Paul understood that he could be used powerfully for God's kingdom only when he was weakened, humbled, laid aside. Learning through limping. And may we desire to learn this lesson, we ourselves today. It's not the sweetest and most pleasant life we'd necessarily choose. Just as Jacob learned in what we read today. Yeah. Life on God's terms, trusting him for every outcome. Perhaps some of you here today are already thinking about getting ready for reconciliation with God himself. Please talk to me afterwards about that. Don't let this opportunity go by. Don't just presume on endless tomorrows where you can say, oh, I'll put it off to another time. Get ready for reconciliation with God. And then ultimately, with those you may have wronged in the past. Let's pray together. Father, please humble us and teach us the greatness of who you are and how your perfect will can take place when we are in your hands as humble, usable people. Lord, thank you for what we learned from Jacob and many people through your word today. Please, we pray that we will be serious about you, that we will be welcoming you into every part of our lives, even if this costs us. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.